Hello and welcome to the Weekly Recap, the Saturday show that covers important and interesting news, events, and even maybe perhaps some geek news of the past week, starting with... 3 allies of the United States are doing the dirty work of the American country, paving the way for the army to steamroll over the remains. Kurdish fighters, which are allies of the U.S., are fighting U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic forces, while the U.S. is providing air cover to aid Turkey's incursion into northern Syria. Due to all this, the United States Department of Defense has distanced itself from all the fighting, especially since a U.S.-assisted Turkish airstrike caused the deaths of 40 civilians. More on that in a little bit. The whole situation is quickly turning into a he-said-she-said scenario. Quote, the Turks say the dead are Kurdish fighters. The airstrikes came after Kurdish fighters ambushed 2 Turkish tanks in an attack that caused the death of at least 1 Turkish soldier, end quote. The three-pronged strife is all in the midst of a U.S. attempt to fight ISIS, bringing a 4th faction into all this mess. Obviously, the Pentagon is denying any involvement in the infighting, but we all know better. Speaking of a huge mess, the Apple Corporation. Yes, I'm talking about the corporation that changed its logo from this to this, purely off the misconception that the average human is too stupid to obviously recognize the whole Sir Isaac Newton Apple gravity thing. And yes, the same Apple Corporation that has now been proven to have been systematically causing the slowing down of their older products in order to force their sheeple customer base to buy the new shiny $500 pile of fecal matter. Yes, I have an iPhone. No, I am not afraid of Apple killing my device because they know that I know that without the distraction of Pokemon Go, I would have even more time to research the atrocities of this world and become more of a threat to their status quo. Anyway, their tax dodge in Ireland has now come to an end when European Union regulators announced that Apple now owes up to $14.5 billion in back taxes to Ireland, after having ruled that Apple charged tax rates so low they constituted quote-unquote state aid, after having paid no taxes to the Irish government for the first 10 years of operation there. This tax dodge from Apple has been going on since as far as back as 1991, quoted from the source. Quote, the Commission's investigation concluded that Ireland granted illegal tax benefits to Apple, which enabled it to pay substantially less tax than other businesses over many years. This selective treatment allowed Apple to pay an effective corporate tax rate of 1% on its European profits in 2003, down to 0.005% in 2014. There are nearly 6,000 Apple employees in the country rumored to have a drinking problem, and Apple has had a presence there for about 36 years. This is mainly because Ireland, which was one of the poorest places in Europe, was known as a haven for international corporations to hunker down in attempts to dodge taxes. So much so that there is even a popular tax avoidance scheme called, quote, the double Irish, end quote, that many companies employed until it was finally scrapped just last year. Speaking of stupid, world powers and how they act like children, specifically the United States of America and Russia. Mohammed al-Adnani, one of ISIS's senior leaders, was allegedly killed in an airstrike earlier this week. Apparently, though, this was a magical phantom airstrike that no one can figure out who it belonged to. Due to this, the 2 major players of the world who have been at odds for nearly a full century are both claiming responsibility, all the while calling the other one a liar, liar, pants on fire. The Russian Defense Ministry has stated that it killed Adnani as well as 40 other fighters via airstrike carried out by a Su-34 bomber upon the town of Maratat Kahush in the Aleppo province. Sounds familiar, huh? However, the Pentagon has stated that it targeted Adnani and was still, quote, assessing the results of the strike, end quote, which occurred in Al-Bab, which is a different town in the same province. Here's the difference. Russia stated that they flat out did the deed, while the US is still investigating, all the while still claiming responsibility. Hey guys, shut the hell up. The guy is dead. Isn't that what truly matters? Grow up. Speaking of the actions of the small-minded, Georgetown University. This educational institution is now planning on once again singling out black people, specifically those descended from slaves, by awarding preferential status to said people. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good that they are also erecting a monument in honor of all the slaves who were bought and sold in the cities surrounding the school, and that John J. DeGoya, the president of the university, is set to deliver a formal apology. However, they are stopping short of giving scholarships to those descendants, which is the wisest move.
It's Friday.
Everyone likes a nice surprise so often, as long as it's not an explosive one.
Get ready for a surprise!
Unfortunately for Samsung, the case was the latter. The Korean-based company has instated an official recall of their newest product, the Galaxy Note 7, due to the batteries of the phones exploding. No, I don't mean the users are experiencing a slew of texts, Twitter updates, or Facebook notifications on their devices. I actually mean the power source for the smart device literally blows up like a brainwashed Muslim.
Like my Palestinian alarm clock. Allahu Akbar!
All offensive jokes aside, there has currently been 35 cases reported globally of this instance occurring. Most likely because the slaves of the Chinese sweatshops that make this phone are tired of not being able to commit suicide, so they figure out how to murder people who buy their products instead. And that concludes the show. You can check any links that you may or may not be interested in the underbar. Don't forget to look right and left at every intersection and rate 5 thumbs and subscribe. Toodles!